All right,
All right.
hello, everybody.
Sounds like we got it.
So,
We'll call this meeting to order. This is the budget committee meeting for fiscal year 2026-2027. Do you need roll call, Diane, or are you good? I'm good. Okay, thank you. If you'll join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We need to have an action item. We need to elect a budget committee presiding officer. And this will not be a board member, correct? Correct. Do I hear a motion?
Good.
It can't be a board member.
Well, I make a motion that Jay Jones be our presiding officer. So is that my name? I, Jim Yonley, so nominate Jay Jones as chairperson of the North Marion School District Budget Committee.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome.
All right, well, thank you, Jay, and thank you, budget committee members, and I apologize again for the delay. So we'll get things underway with my budget message. To the budget committee, board of directors, staff, families, and community members, the development of the budget presented this evening represents far more than a financial exercise. It reflects the priorities, values, and commitments for our district and the communities we serve. The 2026-27 proposed budget has been developed with a focus on supporting students, maintaining long-term financial stability, and ensuring responsible stewardship of taxpayer funds. North Marion, along with school districts across Oregon, face a challenging financial environment where revenue is not keeping up with increasing costs. Oregon's school funding model remains closely tied to student enrollment. North Marion is seeing continued enrollment declines and shifts in our student populations and needs. Because funding follows students, declining enrollment directly impacts the revenue available to support staffing and programs. While these realities create long-term financial challenges, our approach remains proactive, measured, and student-focused. The focus continues to be on making thoughtful decisions designed to preserve educational opportunities and maintain financial stability. Throughout the budget development process, our focus has remained on one central question: how do we best use our resources to support students and remove barriers to success? This budget prioritizes investments that directly support students and educational access. We continue to evaluate programs, staffing structures, and operational expenditures to ensure these expenditures align to the needs of our students. As part of this work, the district continues to emphasize the following: supporting safe and learning environments, removing barriers to student participation and achievement, preserving direct student supports whenever possible, maintaining programs and services that are thriving and making a difference, increasing transparency and accountability in financial decision-making, and aligning expenditures with long-term sustainability rather than short-term solutions. This work results in greater clarity and transparency within our budget development and financial reporting. Budget documents and financial presentations are designed to provide detailed information to stakeholders in a clear and straightforward approach to outline how public funds are allocated and utilized. As the most critical component in supporting student learning and school operations, staffing represents the largest investment within the budget. As enrollment changes over time, staffing levels must also be evaluated to ensure they are aligned with the number of students served and the associated funding. This is the most difficult piece of our work because staffing decisions directly impact people, programs, and school communities. However, we must protect the long-term financial stability of the district by maintaining staffing levels that are aligned to the enrollment trends that we are seeing. To avoid the tough decisions now, we would create significant disruptions in future years. Our goal is to responsibly direct our investments in the programs that demonstrate the greatest impact on student outcomes and to right-size operations over time. This approach preserves educational quality and maintains a sustainable financial foundation for students today and into the future. 2026-27 budget reflects continued efforts to evaluate operational efficiency across departments, preserve classroom supports whenever possible, carefully assess replacement, hiring, and vacancies, and balance current needs with long-term financial sustainability. These efforts allow us to adapt to changing enrollment patterns while continuing to provide high-quality educational opportunities for students. Overall, North Marion remains financially stable. Through careful planning, conservative budgeting practices, and ongoing adjustments, we can remain stable while navigating increasing financial pressures. Long-term challenges remain a key focus, with significant PERS costs coming in the 2027-28 school year and revenue growth lagging behind cost increases and declining enrollment. We must adopt a budget that works both for today and our students tomorrow. Maintaining adequate reserves and a fund balance remains a critical priority. Financial reserves create the stability required during times of uncertainty and ensure we can respond to unexpected operational, facility, safety, or economic challenges without imminent disruption to student services. The district remains committed to proactive planning rather than reactive reductions. This includes monitoring long-term enrollment trends, evaluating operational efficiencies, planning conservatively around uncertain revenue assumptions, continuing multi-year financial forecasting, and making incremental adjustments over time rather than delayed large-scale reductions. This approach supports stability for students, staff, and the broader community while remaining prepared for the future. Over the past year, significant effort has been dedicated to strengthening internal systems, improving financial processes, and increasing reviews of operational practices. These efforts both support compliance and our commitment to responsible stewardship of public funds. We appreciate the collaboration with our budget committee, board of directors, staff, families, and community stakeholders throughout the budget process and beyond. In closing, North Marion School District continues to be a strong and resilient school district because of the dedication of our staff, students, families, and community. With public education financial environments continually evolving, the district remains committed to making thoughtful, student-centered decisions that balance current educational needs with long-term financial sustainability. We appreciate the continued partnership and support from our community as well as we all come together with one common goal, supporting student access and meaningful educational opportunities both now and into the future. Respectfully submitted, Dan Bush, Superintendent.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. So at this point, I would like to step into the next phase. Welcome, everybody. Appreciate your patience with some technical issues with the last minute adjustment on these. But we really appreciate the time, the commitment that everybody's making to lead this charge and really help your neighbors, your stakeholders, and yourselves feel confident in the plans for North Marion School District and for the students. My goal tonight is to share supporting information that is in addition to the budget document and to outline our approach, providing context for the budget we are presenting. So the presentation tonight will begin with our budget message as we just did. We will then be moving into some key budget factors. We'll be talking about some financial stability. And then we're going to walk through the budget and open for questions and discussions.
We did have it on the agenda, there was a public comment space.
I did not have the agenda in front of me. And so with that welcome, we're going to pause. We definitely will pause and take public comments. I didn't see anybody on our sign-in sheet. I don't have any. We don't have any public comment. Thank you. Appreciate that for apologize for the out of order on that, so.
Go ahead, Mike.
I want to congratulate North Marion on being the only school in the state that's in the black, to my knowledge. It's absolutely amazing. I have friends in Southern Oregon and a lot of friends in Portland and Beaverton, and they are atrociously in trouble. So, but I have some more questions to go with that
Absolutely.
later, but I really do appreciate that. Unfortunately, the news locally is, there is none. So people don't even know that.
Well, and the kudos go to our staff who experienced a very difficult production a year ago. There was some very difficult decisions made, and it's not, you know, it's going to need to be an ongoing conversation. But to not be in the shoes that some of our neighbors are in right now, I absolutely agree that it'd be an absolute blessing. So tonight, we've heard our budget message, and so what I want to start with is some key budget factors. These are the factors that are gonna lead into the rest of the presentation here tonight. And as we walk through the pieces tonight, I'm going to be using an approach that I found to be very helpful. There is a lot of information in a budget document. So going over pieces of it and then pausing and having that discussion at that point, I feel like has been extremely helpful. So as far as the key budget factors, these are the items that are really at the forefront of developing a budget. The reality of revenues is that they are not what they once were. We need to make sure we're focused on building sustainable budgets, even though our priorities are absolutely all calling for the same dollar. And special revenues is something we're going to talk about tonight. They are become a very significant source of funding for school districts, but they are uncertain in a lot of cases. Investing in people, that is our focus. The people are what make this district incredible. The people being our students, the people being our staff, the people being our community. The people are what, where we really want to keep our focus. Student needs are growing. They do need greater supports. And so balancing those investments in people with those student needs is very difficult as well. But it is definitely a key priority. Enrollment, as we've talked about, student enrollment drives our funding. Without students, we don't have funding. So as our student populations shift, you're going to hear us talking about, we must continue to evaluate our options. And then some of our core operational costs remain the same, even though those numbers are going down, those revenues are going down. Your power bill does not go down when you have less students in a room. Certain costs don't go down. So trying to continue to find solutions to continuing to be this incredible district within the means we have is the goal of our budgets. So these key factors are cornerstones into ensuring financial stability for the district. As was mentioned, there's a lot of instability right now in school districts. And so doing the things that we are doing and really evaluating things is going to be key.
Not ready for that one yet?
No, perfect.
Okay.
So to attain and maintain this financial stability, we must remain proactive. We must adjust to all entities would adjust to their clientele, to the market, to trends and economy. And while some may not see a public school district in the same light as a private business, there's actually a lot more similarities than one might realize. It's true, we can't sell more widgets or franchise our company, but we can and we must adapt to the needs of our customer, and that's the students and the families in this community. More importantly, when our revenues change, we must make a change. So this chart demonstrates some of that significant change. The orange columns are indicating our enrollment, with the blue line indicating the number of employees. Continuing to make thoughtful and proactive decisions is going to be key to our financial stability. Many of us have heard the stories about the loss of enrollment statewide, and it is absolutely a reality. The state funding allocation model aims to provide equitable funding to districts across the state. And based on enrollment, it'd be reasonable to believe that as enrollment declines, then the funding impact would be balanced. If all district enrollment was changing at the same rate, this would be true. But in comparison to a statewide average, North Marion has seen an enrollment decline at a greater rate. And unfortunately, our share of the state school fund has decreased faster than that of other districts. So I share these details in a support of a discussion about the ending fund balance. An ending fund balance represents the amount of money that is built into a budget that we do not plan to use within the current year. This is essentially the savings account that we all know we need to have. And a healthy ending fund balance is the #1 indicator of financial stability for a school district. Our board policy has a target of a 10% ending fund balance within our general fund. This current year that we're in, our budgeted ending fund balance is 4%. And in the budget that we are presenting to you this evening, we are proposing a 6% ending fund balance. To meet this 10% target with this budget would have required significant layoffs. As we prepare to walk through the budget, we ask you to consider this proposal. We recommend that we balance growing our reserves with steady and measured changes to avoid significant disruptions to our students, our staff, and our community. Before we jump into the next phase, I found that providing a foundation for our budget walkthrough has been extremely helpful. School districts use funds. Funds are essentially separate entities within our systems, and each fund tracks its own activity. Funds operate tracking their revenue, they track their expenditures. And that revenue within each fund is recorded using something called a revenue source. And then the expenditures are recorded using different functions. Tonight, we're going to be walking through 4 main funds. Our general fund, primary source of all operations in our district. Special revenue funds. This is the section I was talking about, that we are increasingly seeing more revenues in this area. However, they are restricted for very specified purposes, and they are uncertain year to year. Debt service funds, we're going to talk about what those funds are related to long-term debt, and then capital projects we'll get to as well. On the next slide, quickly mentions that, again, within each fund, we're going to talk about the resources. A budget calls it resources, it's our revenues. What are our resources available? And the source that we're going to be talking about identifies where is that revenue coming from? Is it local revenue, state revenue, federal revenue? Those are our main buckets. When we talk about requirements, now we're talking about expenditures. And every expense in a school district must identify not only the fund, the entity in which that transaction is occurring, but the function, which is describing the activity or the program for what that expense is made. And the object is actually going to define what it is. Is it a service? Is it an object? And if that, what type of object? So fair to say there's a lot of information in the budget document. And as we walk through these next phases, this again is where I'm going to pause at the end of each fund so that we can address any questions that might come up at that time. There's a lot of details, and to come back to it in 45 minutes, it's gonna be, you said something about something on, yeah, and it's just, I found this has worked really well for our teams. So we're gonna start with general fund resources, and this general fund, again, resources are indicating our revenues. I wanna be clear that a budget is a plan. And it is a plan based on the best information we have available at this time. One of the responsibilities of our budget committee is to question that plan. How was this plan developed? What did you use in making these assumptions? So a lot of what I'm presenting to you tonight are the assumptions that were made. And that as our committee, you are evaluating, does that seem like a reasonable approach to those assumptions? So our general fund represents our largest fund. And to project those revenues, we use a number of different pieces. One of the largest pieces of the general fund is the state school fund. That is the primary source of revenue for the majority of districts in the state. In March of 2025, Oregon Department of Education released an estimate of what our share of the state school fund will be for next year. That estimate is released using information that we give them. What do we think our enrollment is going to be next year? How much do we think we're going to receive in property taxes? How much do we think we're going to spend on transportation? We provide all of this data and it goes into a formula with the state, and then they tell districts how much you would anticipate getting out of the state funds. I am projecting our property tax revenue that our collections should increase about $192,000. This is based on the assessed values that are determined by Marion County. It's also based on historical collections. The county can assess tax of a certain dollar amount. Our revenues are based on what people can pay. So when the economy starts getting difficult, you might be a little bit more concerned about people not being able to cover as much of their property taxes. So these are pieces that we're looking at and really trying to evaluate. If the county's gonna bill X, what percentage of those bills do we believe are gonna be paid? The budget also, when we're talking about resources and you're talking about revenue, money you have to operate, we need to consider what's known as the ending fund balance for this year. What do we believe we're gonna end this current school year with when all the bills are paid and everything's said and done? This budget is projecting a $2.5 million ending fund balance. It's very critical that we understand this budget hinges on us having those funds available and coming into the new year with that. If we miss that target this year, we all of a sudden have a shortfall in next year's budget. So it's a very delicate balance to really be cautious of expenditures for the next 2 months.
Can I ask a question on that slide?
Absolutely.
So why is there such a delay, like March 2025?
Oh, I apologize. Thank
It
you.
is March
It
2025.
should say March 2026. We later are gonna be talking about, we are actually working in 3 school years right now. We are working in the 24-25 school year. We have activity happening from the state with that. We are working in the 25-26 school year, and we are also working in the 26-27.
No, that's right.
So
Yep.
you are that was, thank you. March 2026, we received an estimate of our July 2026 revenue. Yes, thank you.
And then on the property tax revenue,
Yes.
you know, there's new housing that's going up, like Donald, for example, has all these new houses. Is that factored into the property tax revenue that we will get next year?
So the county, yes, so we get information from the county. We actually are aware of applications and permits and construction permits ahead of time because of a number of things. They notify districts. It can impact our buildings, our schools, our capacities and that sort of thing. So we are aware of that. Right now, we are not projecting a significant increase in this next year, because of course there is a timing of when a house is built and when property taxes start. And so at this point, there's not a significant jump in there. Now, should that be realized, that of course is a positive news for a budget and may help offset another negative.
Right.
I will say, my approach is very conservative in a budget. I've been through it, as North Marion has too. It is very difficult to find out that there's not enough money in a budget and have to have some really difficult conversations.
I was just
Yeah,
curious. not
no, I
frustrating.
appreciate that. I want
Yeah.
that transparency in those questions, so.
So, and I have a question. Now, you keep talking, since you brought this up several times, why do we need a 10% ending fund balance? I mean, what's the reasoning there? You know, I mean, normally I hear, 4 months, so wouldn't that be 25% of the annual budget? And we're only looking at a 10% ending fund balance, so, and right now we're below that. I remember the discussion about being below that, but why is it a target of 10%. So why is that important to next year's budget?
Could I take a run at that? So prior to this year, we didn't have a policy that established a target. So this is the first year that we've had a target number that said we wanted to have that. Most districts have policies and we have adopted a policy that, and most times it is anywhere I've seen as low as 8 and I've seen as big as 15 in districts. So I have not seen a district go above that. Given the fact that our last year's ending fund balance, we thought 10 was a good number. We actually created some unique language in there that the board actually has to do a resolution if it goes below 8. So there's some public acknowledgement that we are not where we want to be. So I don't necessarily, I can't answer the particular why 10. I just know that most district policies are somewhere between 8 and maybe upwards of 15%.
Okay, and so why do we need that ending fund balance for next year?
That's an excellent question. So school district funding is very cyclical. We receive state school fund money. However, a large portion of our money also does not come until November when the property tax bills go out. So a district must have enough cash in the bank to operate to essentially front some of the funds that may not come in. I can speak to 2 years ago in the 2023-25 biennium. The grant money did not start coming in until about month 14 of the 24-month cycle. So we were carrying the districts. I don't want to say carrying, but a lot of districts were unable to get reimbursed for expenditures that had been promised, but funds were not yet available. So it really comes down to cash flow. I'll be perfectly honest. It comes down to if a roof caves in, unfortunately, they're not $50,000 fixes. They are, $2.5 million, depending on the size of the building. So it really becomes that emergency fund, that a lot of us as individuals, yes, we hear 4 months, 6 months, you need to have cash in the bank. Schools do have a little more security due to our funding sources. The state is most likely going to fund, but there was a situation years prior to my being in his where the state shut off the money mid-year. And if you didn't have money in the bank, all of a sudden you have hundreds of people who don't get payroll, who can't make mortgage payments, and it becomes a snowball effect. So, but the GFOA, Government Finance Office of Administration, recommends between an 8 and 10% fund balance, I believe is.
Mike, gotta go.
When does the state biennium announce to you how much you're gonna get for it's for next 2 years, isn't it? The new budget the state's coming up with. And I've heard that we can only accumulate 10% for that emergency fund by law. Is that true?
So
In our fund.
Go ahead. First question for the biennium. The bienniums are on odd years. So right now we are in the 2025 to 2027 biennium. So June 30 of 2027 is the end of the current biennium.
27.
I will tell you that the budget for this biennium, I believe, was set a month before the biennium started, was all. Budgets had to be adopted by all the school districts, but the state had not released how much they're gonna give them.
So are you anticipating an increase or staying status quo?
That is $1 million question.
Okay, can you determine how quickly to boost this to 10%? I don't like the 2% figure in economic problems we have ahead of us, perhaps. Is there a possibility if we get an increase that we can increase this fund more than 2%?
Are you saying in the next biennium increase it?
And when the state finally gives you a raise in July, August.
That would be excellent. Next year's budget will be complex. We are hopeful that school funding will continue to be a priority for the.
But your budget's based on the amount of money you have coming. We may have more
Correct.
coming. Can we put that in this fund?
So they won't change our funding are you referring to the request for them to access the rainy day fund right now?
Yes.
So should there be a change in available budgeted funds, then that would be a board, we would be coming back to, there is a process in Oregon budget law in which there is a formal process to acknowledge additional funding. So that would actually be coming back to the table.
So there is a possibility we can increase more than 2%.
Absolutely, if funding comes in ahead, and of course, the goal is that when I'm projecting a 6% ending fund balance, the goal is we tighten our belts and we come in above that as well. I really don't want to miss a mark and project a certain number and miss that. For example, the budget we're in right now was projected to end the year with $1.2 million. I believe with fairly optimism that we are gonna end with 2.5 million. So the possibilities are there, but there are challenges coming ahead of us, and we are needing to look at things in a multi-year approach for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Was there I believe the emergency fund you're referring to, I believe that's the legislative emergency fund that does have a cap on how much that can be accumulated.
Okay, I
Yes.
just heard it's,
Our fund balance
you
can
can only.
You could have 25% of it if
Emergency
you're,
fund and
that's,
action,
if you're,
10%.
districts may accumulate a fund balance, to my understanding. I've never heard of a district having a problem with having too much in the bank.
If only we have those problems.
So let's, wanted to just show you real quick. I think visuals are really helpful just to kind of tell the story, because there are way too many numbers in these books and the prescribed format that we're required to do. Essentially, that orange part of this pie, that's our state school fund. We are really counting on, state sources. That is really a big piece, local sources and other. So really, it's just helpful to see where is the money coming from. On our next slide, we want to talk about some general fund requirements. Again, the requirements are our expenses. So some of our assumptions are using known values. And then others are providing us to do, provide our best estimate using the information available at this time. I will tell you, the minute this budget is approved and adopted, it will change. Something will change. Some grant will either be reduced or increased. Some expense will come onto the radar that was not planned for. Adapting to our budget is absolutely critical. For expenses in our, what we call the 100 and 200 series, these are objects that define what is the money being used for. 100s are salaries, 200s are benefits. And we are very fortunate to have a lot of these figures already defined for us. It's halfway through the biennium, so we know what our PERS rates are. We have 2 contracts close to being settled. We have a licensed agreement that's being voted on in the next little bit. So our assumptions for payroll and benefits, we feel are relatively confident in this one. The 300 series represents purchase services, which is a really wide term, and I'm going to go into that here in a little bit, but it includes transportation. It includes staff that we contract with that provide services to us but are employed by someone else. It includes those service calls and repairs. It's our substitutes. It's all of our utilities. These expenses can be extremely dynamic and extremely hard to project. On the next page, we talk about the 400 series. These are supplies and materials. These are the things that we need to be able to operate. The 600 series, really that number, the big piece in there is our insurance. And just like every one of you that just cringe every time you get a new insurance renewal, we're in the same boat. I was thrilled to be told to plan on a 9.5% increase this year because it was 18% last year. So not great to be hitting 27% in a couple of years, but that is the biggest piece in there. And then our 800 series is actually an expense line that we say we are going to plan to expense, not pay it out, but we want to hold it in our expense account. Our contingency, which is the money we are setting aside, we don't plan to use it. It's there, but it's that savings account we shouldn't touch. But then there's also something called an unappropriated fund balance. And that money cannot be touched. No, I will say no matter what, there are certain national disasters that, the state could come in and award districts the ability to access that. But those are funds that districts are saying, we need these in the bank to be able to operate next year. We cannot start the year at 0 because we can't float things for a while. So I wanted to show you this visual. It's So this one goes back to functions. The function describes what are we spending the money on? What is that activity? So instruction and support services, they're essentially using up that entire budget. Instruction is defined by the state as direct delivery of instruction to students. The support services are defined by the state as your counselors and your secretaries and your custodians and your transportation and your technology. So to say that it's not instruction, I could almost argue that things do fall into a gray area, but neither of these exists without the other. You can see at the top, we have a yellow piece of the pie. That's the contingency, the piece that no plans to touch it at all. But if a roof caves in, that's where it needs to come from. Unappropriated funds are saying, we need this to be set aside to make payroll, to pay our bills until money starts coming in the new school year. The goal is both of those slices are with us as we start the next year. This is what the money goes to. So again, the last one was what is the type of activity it's being spent on? This is where is the money going? Salaries and benefits. I have told you our focus is people. We are people first. We're the people business. Salaries and benefits is our largest piece. That contingency and reserves, the dark red pie, that was the same slices from the last one. Insurance, that green piece, unfortunately, that's all insurance. And the yellow piece is all we spend on stuff. That is it. There is not much we can cut as far as that is our paper, that is our bathroom tissues, that is our, that is stuff district-wide. The purchase services piece, though, when I put this pie together, I thought, you know what, I want to demonstrate what that is, because that is a big chunk of the pie. Purchase services is still people. They just are not on our payroll. So it is going to be repair and maintenance. When we need an HVAC technician to come in and get the heat going and repair something, when we have a nurse, a school psychologist, or speech pathologist, and our PT and our OT and our audiologist, the staff who we contract to work for our district are in there. The orange one down there, utilities, postage, leases, those are all considered contracted services. I kind of, the state makes this for us and tells us what we're gonna code things as, but utilities, and then that bottom blue line, those would be what we'd be paying bus drivers if we owned the buses, if we owned all the staff. So that bottom line is transportation. So again, more people. So if we go back to that last pie, if you take salaries, benefits, and purchase services, we are in the people business, that 100%. All right, so this is meant to provide a summary of the general fund budget, how it was developed. I realize there are lots of pages of it. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions about the technical budget document itself or anything else at this point before we move on to special revenue funds. And we're happy to wait and hold questions at the end as well, so.
This is about general fund,
I thought if we talk about general fund, yeah.
or the 30s pages general fund for you?
Yes.
Can you explain or give me a little insight on page 31?
Yep.
Our elementary extracurricular.
Yep.
The difference between the adopted, the actuals proposed.
Yes, absolutely. So of course, actuals are showing what in the 2023-24 and 24-25, what was actually spent in this category. And this is elementary extracurriculars. So these are clubs or activities or other pieces that were coded that way. Last year's budget was reduced, and this year I have a very minimal amount in there. And the reason for that is that we have moved the funding for those into a grant. So those have been moved into our student investment account, and those are our instructional leader teams. And so that is something that was paused unfortunately this year. For the most part, there was a little bit of work done on that, but we were able to build that critical piece back into our budget for next year, but it is in a different fund. Thank you.
That's what I thought. Same thing with, page
Middle and
33 with
Okay.
middle. Yeah.
Page 33 on.
Which do, yeah, line item 150.
So that one, actually, I appreciate you asking about that one. We are, definitely, my approach to budgeting actually is a little different. I use a pro forma database, and so you put in actually all the positions that you intend to pay. I like to put most of them in at the top pay to make sure,
Okay.
because if you happen to hire all senior
Makes sense.
coaches or whatever it was. So, and that is actually what it came out to, based on doing an analysis. Many of our coaches are not subject to PERS. So there are times where we can adjust our costs, in different ways. But this actually is increasing the number of coaches and when I say coaches, I need to be very clear. This might be coaches, clubs, advisors. So our middle school is adjusting some of their clubs as well, but we did add football coaches for our middle school into this budget. So in that same page, 1122, you'll notice our budget for in the 310 went from 6,500 to 9,500. We're anticipating about $3,000 for the referee services for those couple games.
Excellent, yes, thank you. And then, last one, page 35.
Okay.
Line item number 150.
Okay. This is coaches, activities and mentors. So that is another one that, again, through pro forma budgeting, that is exactly what we came up with for all of our club advisors. There was some, we did adjustments. We're in the middle or the vote with our license. But I do believe what that's doing is aligning it more with actuals. I will say part of our budget savings this year is that the $379 that was in the adopted budget, $379,000 that's in the adopted budget was more than was required for sure. So this 333 is actually budgeting for the positions that have been identified to be needed.
Okay, and I saw you added a line item above it in 110 for 83,000.
So what that is now is this 1132 is a function that describes extracurricular activities at a high school. We used to have an athletic director that was coded as office of the principal. So now our athletic director is coded as a directing high school extracurricular activities. And that is the reason for also the FTE change from 0 to 1.
Okay,
You know so much about every line item.
I know.
I didn't
I love it.
have a note on that one though.
Adopted versus, or actuals could be, because a few programs were cut, like swimming.
There were some changes.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
unfortunately, some of the, I think there's a metric then, like if there's less than so many, so that could be why that 379 have proposed, and last year was
Yeah.
so much higher than.
I love it.
Thanks.
I love it when people read the document.
In reading the documents in particular, I took 3 real hard swings at this thing. Finally, I printed out my own copy and started circling and highlighting, so bit of a challenge. I mean, considering the ones we've had before. I'm not unfamiliar with budgets, but this is quite in depth, I will say that. Took me a while to get through it. Probably missed a few things, but it's a good budget. So, and I noticed some of your revenues, you were talking about the revenue sources being up and down, and I had noticed some of the revenue sources when I was looking at them. Where some of them had stopped, some of them had increased quite a bit, some of them had decreased quite a bit. So, yeah, definitely a challenge.
It's
Thank
definitely
you
a
for what you did.
puzzle. Yes, Jill.
Question, on page 36, the big day program. If I remember last year, which isn't that, I remember taking away that was a sort of a self-funded, a little bit separate / revenue source for the district. Am I incorrect in that? So are we paying for the pre-K out of general fund, even though there's a tuition for pre-K?
So on page 26, the tuition for preschool is budgeted at 113,000.
Okay,
And so they, you know, it is, our costs are definitely, for staffing are definitely difficult to balance with that. We have unfortunately had to increase our tuition costs a little bit for our families this year, next year, excuse me. Tuition will be increasing a little bit. But you will see right now there is about a $10,000 gap between our projected costs and our projected revenue, so yes.
okay. And what's the instructional, professional, technical? 310,
310 for the kindergarten is going to,
or the pre-K?
excuse me, I'm sorry, for pre-K. 310 is a purchase, excuse me, those are substitutes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
So are you guys fully enrolled, like is enrollment maxed?
It's maxed with waiting lists.
Yeah, because well, I work at, well, Mentor Rep, but now it's Siemens. They just shut down their program in June, and this month, or next month.
We are hearing demand for
So I
sure.
was just like, oh, if it's not, you may be getting, because there's a lot of unhappy people.
That's
Yeah,
Like that.
what?
I heard about that.
Yeah. But it sounds like it's waitlist, so.
Anything else specific on general fund? And we absolutely can come back to it. I just like to kind of take those pauses while we're here.
You said that there's an anticipated increase in PERS payment.
Yes.
In 27, 28.
Well, is that the next biennium, or that's not in this?
Yes. As of July 1, 2027, there will be some significant changes to our PERS rates, yes.
And do we have a fund to project for that?
We do not right now. I would love to say we have a PERS reserve fund. We do not. That is a key piece of the ending fund balance that we're, you know, proposing. The other piece that is absolutely critical, and this went out in a message to our staff yesterday, is that we are considering every vacancy, every time we have a resignation or a retirement, we are needing to look at whether or not that position is going to be refilled.
Or Linda said once that there was a special way North Marion created a fund for PERS.
We actually will talk about that a little later
Is that
tonight.
over?
That's part of why we're getting hit with what we're getting hit with, yes. One of our two special funds does expire. Our discount from that special fund expires, but our payments for that fund do not.
So that's another thing, a reason we should increase our emergency fund.
We need to be very cognizant to get as healthy of an ending fund balance as
So
possible.
that 2% seems minuscule for what's coming.
It's a move in the right direction, but it is definitely going to be difficult. So we will talk about that, and I'll give you guys some stuff to chew on when we get to our debt service funds.
Okay, I'm
Is that it?
sorry.
No, please, I appreciate it, yeah, because the cost will impact all of our funds. But I do have some slides to
Okay,
get you.
I'll listen.
I appreciate it. I just appreciate when people look at the documents, so. All right, so we are on to our special revenue funds. And so in this section, I've put resources and requirements together because special revenue funds, they're incredibly fascinating to me, but we really have to almost forget what we just talked about with general fund and look at these differently. It's a completely different approach to budgeting. And if you had a second to look through our document, I had provided a page 9 and 10 detailed fund descriptions. Our special revenue funds, we have, I didn't count them, at least 40. And each of those funds, I must come up with, what do we think we're gonna get in revenue? And what are our expenditures? And those numbers have to be to the penny, the exact same. So certain revenues are confirmed within these special revenue funds. Let's talk about, we have a very large grant called the Student Investment Account. We already have confirmation on what we're going to receive next year. We have not received any confirmation and have a lot of uncertainty over many of our federal funds. And we may not know those until September timeframe, long after a budget is built and people have come back to work. So the key is, as I mentioned, every fund must balance. What we expect to get in revenues must balance exactly to what we're gonna spend. But those planned expenditures, they cannot happen until our revenues are confirmed. So this makes it extremely difficult, and you must be very careful when you're considering what are you budgeting for those expenditures? Because if that money doesn't come in, do we have a really, really difficult conversation with staff? Or are there things that we can budget within the confines of those very restrictive uses of those funds? Are there things we can budget that if we had to do without, it would be difficult, but not impossible? So that's part of what special revenues funds are for. On our next slide, I wanted to share that this being year 2 of the 2025-27 biennium, yes, that one is 2025. Our allocations are confirmed for some of our largest grants. But these grants, these special revenue funds, we have over 40 full-time equivalent staff in these funds. So to have uncertainty over money that employs 20% of our staff is definitely something that keeps you up at night. These confirmed allocations provide a lot greater stability, greater confidence, but those federal grants, as we discussed, there is still some concern about how those are going to land. Right now, there's not a lot of concern over the special education fundings from the federal government. However, some of the other federal grants that we do rely on are still up in the air. The next slide, I want to give you guys kind of just a visual. Some of our special revenue funds, and these are just some of our bigger ones, but starting with smaller ones at the top and some big ones down at the bottom. We get funds for migrant summer school. We get other funds for summer school, but this group can only be used on this group of students. This group can be used on all of these students, but only if you bring the students in for X number of hours. And I mean, there are a lot of strings attached would be the best way to say it with these. Comprehensive literacy grant is an incredible grant that we received. It's a 5-year commitment. So this will be year 3. They awarded it this year and said, oh, it's retroactive to last year. So we got a 2-year deposit, if you will, this year. But we have a literacy coach now on staff who is helping really move the dial in reading skills for our staff. The early literacy grant is a grant that is specific to only kinder through 3rd grade right now. And again, it's part of our current state leadership's drive to increase early literacy in students. Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, I apologize that got cut off, but that is what's known as IDEA, and it is funding that is directly related to supporting some of our highest needs students. Summer school, we got great news just 2 weeks ago or so. We have been approved for the next 3 years, about a $400,000 a year summer school grant. So we are really working on really quick putting together plans for summer school and being able to do that. But again, a lot of strings. If the kids are this age, they must be here for this many hours. If they're this age, they must be here for this many hours, and you must focus on this and that. And so it's a very a lot of logistics involved in those. High School Success is an incredible grant that aims at student achievement, college career readiness, preventing dropouts, and then of course getting kids ready for high school. I talked about our federal title funds. I listed an electric school bus grant on here, and this one's a little bit misleading. We, in partnership with First Student, have been awarded a grant for the 3rd time for electric school buses. This grant that was just awarded is $980-some thousand, and PGE awards that money to help work towards climate change and clearing up our environment. So the funds, though, are provided to the school district in advance, and we invest them. So we're just fine sitting on that money for quite a period of time and getting interest on that. But that will pass through once those buses are on the road. That does get passed through. Gear Up scholarships would be something we'd love to talk more about the board and the community with, but this is a source of funding that was received years ago during, actually, I believe it was even prior to COVID when it started. And funds were passed through Oregon Community Foundation. Yep. And there was a bit of a pause, but this scholarship is now providing funds to every single North Marion graduate who goes on to college.
Preston got
What?
his, yeah. Uh-huh,
There are, it started with, I think last school year was the first group.
yeah, you have to
and-
submit paperwork for it,
But it is incredible. I love when I get to write those checks. I mean, it is, and
It's-
honestly, right now, it's doing so well on the interest. It's almost more of an endowment right now, but it's doing a great job. Food services is actually another piece that is in a special revenue fund. The regulations around a food service program, the lunches for students, are intense. So it must be accounted for in its own fund. It is intended to be a self-operating. Your costs and your revenues are meant to equal out. And in fact, if you have money left over at the end of the year and it's more than they think you have, they force you to spend it. So it's a very interesting piece, but our food service program here is incredible. Being able to feed our students at no cost, all students are still available to get no cost breakfast and lunches is incredible. Starting next school year, we are required to serve breakfast at all 4 schools after the bell rings. So there's going to be some adjustments going on. They call it a breakfast after the bell. You are required to offer, I shouldn't say serve.
High school.
We're having those conversations. A little bit of a logistical issue.
Thing going on, so yeah, things go, government, yeah.
You might see some, you might see some drive-through windows in different places in the high school, yeah.
And then student investment account, I talked about that. That is an incredible program that provides millions of dollars of funding for the district and aims, supports all student wellness, mental health and behavioral support, so. I didn't do a lot of detail on our special revenue funds. I would love to have conversation if somebody has any questions. Special revenue funds are, again, their own beast because it really is a unique, it's kind of, I joke that it's the envelope system. And I've got an envelope for this one, I got an envelope for this one, I got an envelope for this one, and you have to keep it all separate, and they each want a separate report, and they each want them at different times, but we would be amiss to not be very thankful, though, for these restricted revenues, so. We want to cruise on through and then we can follow back around. Hey, the debt service funds we talked about. So debt service funds are specifically, these funds all start with the number 3. And these numbers that I keep talking about, these are the same statewide. So anybody can look at any school district's accounting books and know exactly what's going on. And in fact, this is how districts get compared. When you hear about a news report about this district spent more on X than this one, or that it's because of these numbers. So if I put something on the wrong number and get on the news, we're in trouble, right? So, but these debt service funds, each number within a 300 to 399 will serve as servicing a certain predetermined debt. And we have 3. I did not mean to apply, we have 3 to 399. We have only 3 debt service funds. One of those is a general obligation bond that's passed by the voters, and that was used to remodel the high school and the district upgrades. Those payments will continue through 2048. We have a PERS obligation bond. This is those special PERS monies that Mike was referring to. A PERS obligation bond. In 2003, the district sold bonds. And that money, we're going to go into this actually here in a little bit, but those bonds will be paid off, or that debt for those bonds will be paid off in June of 2028. Yes, the bond will be paid off in June of 2028. That's going to be an important date to keep in mind. That's why my years always get swapped. But then we also have one more PERS obligation bond that was just sold in 2021. And those payments will continue through 2040. I did include a debt service schedule in the, I think it's nice for people to be able to see that in your book if you wanted to look at that. So I believe that is page 24. So you could look at those. On the next page, so I wanted to talk about these tonight because it's a big ask, right? To ask a budget committee to approve debt payments. But included in this budget approval process is also a proposed resolution that you would be reviewing, and if approved, it would go to the school board for adoption. But a resolution that imposes a tax on all of the homeowners and property owners in our district. This is done every single year. And I am proposing that we impose a tax of $2,468,242. I am estimating that's the amount of tax that we must impose to make the payments on the general obligation bond for the high school remodel and others. Those payments are $2,355,000. And I wanted to point out, the reason I'm not asking for an imposing tax of $2,355,000 is that when we look at historical data, and I talked about property tax collections earlier, we only get what is paid. And so when we assess tax, usually 95 to 96% of the tax bills are paid. So to get to 2.355 million to pay our bond debt, we would need to assess 2.468 million. I'd be happy to come back to that a little later if we need to, but I would just like to point out that an assessed value and what I'm budgeting that we need for, that we're gonna get for revenue, that's why those are different. Next page, talking about those, yeah.
If we don't pay that, what are you gonna do? If we don't vote that in.
Then a district would be, you'd be in default.
So this is to pay our old debt.
This is to pay a bond that the voters passed, back in 2008. Well, I'm not sure when it got passed.
So we're behind?
No, when you pass a bond, you agree to, pay a property tax in excess of the limitations set by Measure 5. This is, this gets really technical. But every district has a line item on your property tax statement that is for the operations of the district. North Marion's permanent rate is 3.3333 per $1,000 of assessed value. We have this permanent rate, and we cannot charge people in our service areas more than that permanent rate unless they pass a bond. When they pass a bond. Or levy, thank you, or an operating levy, yep. When a bond is passed, then that is the approval for the governing body, the school board, to assess a tax every year. I can't say I've ever heard of one not approving any, it's more the amount is what is being authorized.
But this amount comes out of our general school budget.
So no, the amount that we're talking about, it will actually go on a document that gets sent to Marion County, and it will go on property tax statements of it is already on everyone's, I wanna be very clear, this is nothing new.
It's already on your.
This is nothing
It was
new.
voted in 2017.
And this is something you do every year as a budget committee,
You
and
approve this payment.
you are approving my calculation, that's essentially what you're doing, is you're
Yeah.
approving my calculation that we need to assess 2.4 to get the 2.3 number.
Okay, so 2.4 is gonna be assessed to all of the property tax owners.
Yes.
Why is it even considered in our budget then?
You are,
Because the school district owns the bond. It's our bond. So it has to pass through us in order to get paid.
yeah.
So it's like when Chemeketa, you see Chemeketa on your Marion County tax bill, that money gets sent to Chemeketa. And then they pay it.
Correct.
So, it's like us paying our mortgage. So we get a money from whoever you work for, you pay your mortgage, it runs through your bank account. That's essentially what it's doing. But it was approved by the voters in 2017.
It was what?
It was approved by the voters in 2017, the bond.
The bond. So this is a bond before the school was built.
Yes. This is the bond that paid for the school to be built. The high school.
Oh, it was the school bond.
Yes, that is the one. Mhm.
I'm just,
It was financed for 30 years,
I
so.
know, I'm just, it seems like we're behind, and I don't understand that.
We're just making our annual payment, so we have to pay that every year. The bondholder, whoever bought that bond,
Yeah,
gets
I understand.
money
that,
every
I just-
year and we just
It seems like we
authorize
have
the
a special
tax.
assessment going on to keep up.
So no,
Is this an annual event?
yes,
Yes.
since 2017, it has been on property tax statements, and this acknowledgement of the amount that needs to be assessed is an annual requirement by Oregon budget law.
So it's almost procedural.
Why did,
Yes, it is. I remember
so our
that.
bond issue to build all the schools was not enough.
Oh, it was enough, but we're paying it back now. So it's over a 30-year term.
I know that, but this seems like an extra amount of money that we're have to pay.
No, I think the issue lies in that there wasn't very good transparency between 2017 and 2023.
The amount is higher because not everyone pays property taxes in full. And so to get the obligation amount that we're required to pay, we have to ask for a little bit more to account for that. Am I understanding?
Absolutely, and I'd be
Yeah, okay.
happy to share this, looking back, this is about, I wanna say it's $80,000 higher or something than what you approved last year, because obviously your bond payments are scheduled to increase a little bit every year with inflation, so this is procedural. I wanted to be transparent, and I do apologize because it is a little bit complex.
So in
So-
the past, the procedural part, all we were given was a rate. If I remember in our previous meeting, budget committee approval, it was, do we say aye or whatever it is to the
Yes.
3.335 or whatever.
3.33,
We
yeah,
didn't see the over $2 million.
right. It's-
Number,
It's
yes.
down here in
Yes.
T, it was on this document approved every year,
Yeah,
and it's right down here.
and I think that's
2.46.
where the,
Yeah,
it's not. The what?
The amount is listed with the.
Right, yeah, but we were just, it was just more high level, I think.
Yes.
So I think that's where the confusion might be a little bit.
And I'd be happy to sit down with you.
I'm just wondering if all the voters read their tax statement.
Absolutely, well,
I
They don't read it. They
No,
don't read it, but they question the additional.
I want to be clear, what we're discussing here now will not change property tax bills. What would change property tax bills is their assessed values. This is no new assessments, no new charges by the district. This is an existing property tax line item that has been on bills since 2017 or 18, depending on when it hit the actual statements.
Okay.
Yeah. So going back to our PERS bonds now, let's talk about Fund 305. That is our PERS bond that was issued in 2003. It was an $11.9 million bond. We've been paying it since then. And those funds, when we received those funds in 2003, they're given to PERS, and PERS invests them in a side account. And then in return, they give us a credit on our rate every month. So instead of paying the what they call the standard rate of 26%, we may be paying 12%. We may be paying, so you give them money in advance, they give you a discount, and they just take that little bits of money from that side account, is what they call it, as it's needed. This is where we're talking about a PERS charge concern. Those rate credits that we've been getting, those expire June 30th of 2027. So this budget that we're looking at right now has that rate credit in there. We're still getting a discount on what we have to pay to PERS on every dollar. The trouble is, the bonds that were sold in 2003 are not set to be paid off until a year later. So essentially, we have 1 year in which we no longer get the discount, but we also still need to put money aside to pay our debt.
Just so you know, this is because many school districts went in on these bonds in 2003. And every single district is facing the same timing issue of when that expiration happens for the credits, but the bond payments continue. So you're going to hear a lot about PERS, if you haven't already heard about PERS for 27, 28, because many school districts are facing the same year gap dilemma.
Absolutely. This was just a structural,
So-
I wouldn't say change, because the bond was structured that way,
So,
but
so I'm guessing the original idea was we would, you would gain more on interest and get that back in credits on the money you invested, vice what you would pay on the bond annually.
were you speaking at my presentation? The next slide you're gonna love. So let's talk real quick.
And now we're at a point where we're gonna end up having to pay the
We are
increased PERS rate and the bond for 1
Yes.
year.
For 1 year.
For 1 year.
I wonder if there'll be a legislative bill next, it's a long session next year that expires just before that, so
It does.
I'm curious.
We are curious.
What are we gonna do with that?
Yeah.
I think it-
The capital always
Yeah,
welcomes stuff.
use the second.
Fund 306, I just wanted to share real quick, that was another $15.4 million bond that was issued in 2021. Those funds are invested with PERS, rate credits and bond payments, continue through 2040. So we were watching that as well. This next slide is exactly what you were asking about. So I tried to simplify this as best I could. We receive what are called actuarial reports. And I am looking forward to having an in-depth meeting with, or session with our board and nerding out, as I call it, on PERS. But our PERS rate credits, I've got two columns. I've got a column for our historic actuals. These are the numbers that the actuaries have confirmed. And then they have given us numbers that they are projecting for 2025. They are a couple of years behind, yes. But our PERS rate credits, meaning the discount we have received on what we've had to pay PERS. For the past 20 years, the actuals, over $32 million less has gone out of North Marion's pocket to PERS because of that side account. They are projecting another $25 million in savings moving forward. But to get those savings, we had to make payments to a debt service, right? So we had to go make payment. We saved over here, but we had to hand money over here. The goal is that you hand out less than you save. The red numbers show us what we paid to the bonds. That bottom line, North Marion taxpayers have saved over $10 million in 20 years by taking out those bonds. And it is projected very conservatively that we will save another 2.9 million over the next 15 years. These bonds were an incredible gift to the taxpayers. We will have approximately an $800,000 double dip next year. But we need to be very clear, taxpayers have saved over $13 million, projected, have saved over $10 million. It is not good news, it's difficult timing, but they were the right thing to do for the long-term stability. We're gonna be talking more about this because we will have a one-time bill to take care of in the next fiscal year.
Just so you know, we are looking, districts are exploring whether to go for new site accounts. The market is a little not a good time to be making those investments right now, but we are exploring that. Many districts are exploring that when things maybe settle down a little bit. Because it is a risk. In 2008, there were a few districts that went out and did this right before the housing crash, and those districts saw negative numbers there. So these are risky moves. Timing's important. I think because of that 2008 issue, districts are wanting to have a high degree of confidence that they'll be a good investment. And right now with volatility, no one's feeling that right at the moment.
But yes, looking forward to diving into more, because that's the fun stuff that we love to look at, so.
You love to look at it.
I gotta come up with something I know that I love doing it too.
I think everybody with me, I know like the weeds.
Yes, Merle.
So what is the amount that the district will hold for that 1 year?
So there are some movements happening with PERS and exactly how they are going to handle this, but we are estimating approximately $880,000.
Do we keep up with our current PERS payments now?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. They take and take and take.
So what percentage of this arrearage in PERS has been caught up? 40, 50?
So are you
Statewide, I mean. there must be a
statewide?
number.
So PERS has something they call it the unfunded actuarial liability, the UAL. It is I'm not gonna quote right now, I know it's below 80%, meaning they have only made up 80% of what is owed. The best way I've heard it explained is if PERS shut down right now and had to pay everything they've promised everyone in pensions and, contributions, they only have 80% of what they need.
80% of what they need.
Similar to any bank, if every one of us if every person that banked at a certain bank walked in and withdrew all their funds, banks do not have all those funds.
Those old teachers aren't aging fast enough, are they?
Or this.
Or some of us, are just not retired.
I don't wanna hold you.
So, yeah,
When you do, you become like a rich.
yeah, that's right, yeah. There's a lot of gas, I got a lot of gas in the tank.
But yes, we will be having lots of
And
discussions.
80% is pretty good, actually.
And I'm pulling that.
But, you know,
Yeah, I feel like and it is below, is my understanding, it's below, but I believe it's above 70 now. So, but it's interesting because interest rates and earnings make a huge swing in that. So, yes, the multi-100-page reports that we get on the PERS status is very overwhelming. So, anything else on our debt services? All right, so last one. Be a quick one, so unfortunately, it's gonna be quick. Capital projects. Probably not a surprise, we don't have any capital projects planned right now. Capital projects mean builds, they mean expansive remodels. We are talking major projects. We are not talking about windows and painting and things that need to be maintained, but we are talking about expansion of facilities usually, or replacement of facilities. The one piece that is in these capital project funds is a construction excise tax fund. Construction excise tax is something that is assessed against the addition of square footage within our school district boundaries. And so when somebody's building a new home, or potentially during a remodel, if it is increasing the size of the home, the districts receive a portion of a permit fee to help fund expansion of the system that, of course, it likely going to be supporting more families. So construction excise tax assumptions, we have put a budget in there. Most of our construction excise tax comes from Marion County. I get a lot of really simple reports from some of our cities, and we had a couple of them last year that had 0 for 12 months, right? So there's not a lot of movement going on those right now. But I've estimated revenues using some historical trend data, some economic forecasts, but again, those revenues depend solely on construction activity. And I want to be clear that the proceeds and the balance in that account within the budget, it can only be used to fund capital improvements. It cannot be used to help supplement costs right now for maintenance and staffing and ongoing. So it is another piece. It is not part of that ending fund balance that we were showing you. Well, that ending fund balance that we keep discussing is really our general fund, the money that we have available unrestricted. We do have balances in other funds that are restricted. So our capital projects fund has money in it. Our special revenue funds have monies in it, but they, again, strings attached. So we're not talking just cash in the bank. We are talking general funds unrestricted, ending fund balance. However, on the horizon, we are very conscious of some significant projects that are going to be coming our way. There is an LED lighting conversion that is required and must be completed. The state has determined that after, I believe it's January 2030, quote me for sure, but in the next couple of years, we will no longer be able to buy bulbs for these lighting fixtures. And that is, we must have LED in every fixture. And that includes fields, that includes buildings, that includes eaves, that includes parking lots. So that is something that as things go out, the replacement item, there's an LED fixture. So HVAC systems and air quality, they're strained. And we were very fortunate after some delay to be able to get the high school up and running again this year, but a number of our systems are aging. Roofing and our building envelopes, meaning the keeping our buildings dry, warm and dry, always an ongoing piece. And then the state has another piece called the Building Performance Standards, and they are requiring buildings to meet certain energy efficiencies. And at this point, there's no funding on those.
Are there grants available for solar on our huge roofs?
So we work closely with Energy Trust of Oregon. They have a lot of incentives. And so we are working closely with them. We also have a new director of facilities coming on board who has a lot of experience working with Energy Trust of Oregon. I can't speak specifically to the solar, but we are going to be exploring all options as utility costs continue to rise. Are there other options we can look at? But it's a challenge, yes.
Do you need any more to do?
Sure. All right, so any questions about capital projects funds other than sure be nice if we could do a little more, but we're working right along. So at this point, I guess I will open our floor to overall discussion about anything and everything that we need to discuss. And we'd be happy to project the actual budget document if you want. I feel like my experience has been it's very helpful to have a conversation about the approach and the assumptions and those sort of pieces, especially as there's not as much room in budgets anymore to move things.
This is only my second year on this committee, but I really appreciate the background information and the plain language explanations. And all of the transparency, like, I really do appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I love sharing
second
it.
that.
Thank you. I love sharing it. And I know sometimes it creates, it can be concerning because when there's a change in process, it can look concerning, but. And my door is open year round.
You included this, and I'm not sure if it's in our budget committee thing, but our enrollment by grade by school year. Which it's amazing to me that in 2018, compared to today, we've only lost 6 graduating students next year.
Correct.
But in the middle school years, we've lost 50 students in that period of time. Why? I mean, there's
the main
46, 55, 41 students all lost in those years. I mean, that's a total amount of students lost in years.
But that's the kills, right?
But we're ended up graduating the same.
Correct. So really I see what you're saying. So our graduating class is about the same size, but those middle school classes are what are shrinking. So, we are, what we're, I'm not sure how our.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
I will say COVID threw a big kink in there. I mean, if we look at, we were in the 143, 145, and then all of a sudden it drops to 123. There are, especially at, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this, isn't always my utter focus, but we see families sometimes choose other options for education in the younger years, but when it comes to high school, there are a lot of opportunities that are very difficult to provide in a homeschool setting or maybe a private school setting. So we do see some kids come back for those high school opportunities, and it's at the forefront of our mind when we're building a budget that, sometimes it takes more than English class to get a kid to come to school. So investing where it's gonna make sure kids are going to want to be here is critical.
I noticed, one of your first slides, a long time ago, the projected FTE for next year was slightly lower than last year. And I also know that the board had authorized potential risks for this year, next year. So are those just normal attrition from last year to this year?
Yeah, Yes,
So the RIFs that were authorized don't.
right, so if this slide, so the big dip you
Yeah.
see there was the reduction in force we did last year. And so what we asked the board to authorize a reduction in force again, because the time period from when we did that to really kind of almost like today. Through this process was, there's just so much uncertainty. And there's so many steps in a reduction in force process that I wanted to have in place in the event of. Versus being here today or in the next 2 weeks, having kind of a uh-oh moment and then having to go through that process. So I did announce to staff yesterday, after doing that, I've done it like an every 2 week update. And one of those went out yesterday and I announced that this proposed budget does not have any layoffs required.
Okay.
And so kind of, I think we're at that point where our confidence level is moving into the 90 to 100% that there will be no layoffs. But that message also talked a little bit about the need to examine every position and determine whether we need to fill it or not. I said it's not a hiring freeze,
Right.
but it is going to be an examination of every single position.
So is the ideal goal in a perfect world to sort of manage the FTE's rate enrollment with
Attrition,
retirement,
Yeah.
moving on without having to do, that's like a goal?
Yeah.
Okay,
that message basically said our best way of having no future layoffs or a reduction in force is to do that through attrition.
Mhm.
And if we can, if we just constantly say someone went out the door, we gotta bring somebody back in, we will be in that situation in a year
Okay,
So. Again, not a hiring freeze, but again, a look at what we can do. The other thing we've been starting to talk about with our staff is building what's called a staffing allocation model for every school. So if you take the idea that, per pupil allocation from the state, so if each kid gets a certain amount of money, how do we translate that from this level, this meeting, into a building level? So what does that student buy you at a school level with the staff? So in my previous districts I've worked in as a middle school principal, I knew that I was budgeted at staff at like 29-1. So I'm looking at my enrollment going, at 29-1, I can do that math, I'm gonna get another teacher this year, or I'd wait for the district to tell me, is it gonna be 29, is it gonna be 28, like what's it gonna be? And so trying to make that more, so our buildings, while we're really small, we're not ever gonna have like huge fluctuations. But having something a little bit more predictable for our staff to go, your enrollment is always going to dictate at a building level, you're gonna get this much staff, both in licensed and classified. So try and really try to create more transparency across the district so everybody can kind of know what they're staffed at, because because elementary and secondary are so different. It's easy to look at an elementary school and go, well, we got, 93rd graders, so that means this many, it's something like that, where high school staff's different or schedule's different.
well, I think that's what you were talking about with the right sizing over time and
Yes.
having the appropriate numbers of staff at the appropriate
Yeah.
levels.
Yeah.
Okay,
this is what I appreciate, this is how you run a business. With
Yes.
a lot of schools don't do it that way, it's like, oh, someone left without hire, no, let's think about, that's how a business is ran,
Overall, for the next year, are you anticipating lowering any cost in the education system here?
Yeah.
Besides
Well,
staff,
Besides staff, but we've done a few things, we've changed auditing companies, it was less expensive, what else have we done?
And more efficient.
Renegotiated the transportation.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one,
Huge.
so. We got together with First Student, our transportation company, we were on the hook for a 10% cost increase for this upcoming year. And Kim and I had ongoing conversations with them about like, essentially can't afford this. And because we've been with them forever. And without any, I'll just say, they reduced our cost increase, they went from 10% to 2%.
I thought
Yes.
federal government paid most of busing,
State government comes in and reimburses at 70%.
70%, so we're responsible for 30.
Yes, and so getting that cost to go, that 10% increase down to 2%, our only agreement was to add another year of service. So,
Is first student the only option?
No.
Not here, okay, I have no idea.
I will say, just, they've been a great partner, there are not many options,
Yeah.
but, and they know this, and it's, I don't mind putting on the public record, we will be going out for a request for a full comprehensive competitive bid
RFP.
RFP, thank you.
You're good.
A year from now,
How many,
yes, thank you.
how many kids do we actually bus? I think I see more mothers delivering kids than actually delivering kids.
We are required to bus our students, so.
Yeah,
we're-
It seems like this bus companies ought to be going to
Yeah.
18-mile-an-hour diesels rather than 4-mile-an-hour diesel buses, because they're hauling 3 kids.
Well, those were continued conversations about the different types of buses, because I live in Newburgh, and they use First Student, I see different forms of transportation than the big yellow school bus. So we're having conversations with First Student locally and with the regional folks to say, what are some alternative forms that are cheaper than the big yellow bus?
On our road, you can send a cab down and get the 1 kid.
So we might, so can
I mean,
First
that's-
Student, can
that
First
would be-
Student provide something similar?
We
Yeah.
need like a,
Well, I will say within the city of Hubbard,
yeah,
I got grandkids and, they have trouble, they're the last stop on the bus pickup. They have trouble finding seats. That
Yeah.
was his fault.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they, Grandpa, can we get a ride with you again today?
Yeah,
Okay.
There's certain rules, like the kid can only be on the bus for so long and,
yes,
yeah, so that's why Alton.
And in a
Really, it's an empty bus with 4
And
kids.
with our location problematic,
Yeah.
because in the state, you can require students to walk, I think it's K through 5 is 1 mile, and it's a mile,
Absolutely not.
you know, but you have to have, but, well, that's it.
Yeah.
You have to have adequate sidewalks, so you can't,
Yeah.
that's not just a mile because of where your school's at, it's a mile and safe
Yeah.
transportation, so, or safe walking
Yeah.
access.
A mile for kindergartner, yeah, but.
In Walla Walla, I lived across the street in the mile border, so I got to walk to high school for 3 years. A mile.
So,
And another option might be, you know, taking the bus system back. You know, within the school system, within the school district. I mean, that's probably not a cost-effective way of doing it, but that's the way it used to be for.
And there are districts who do that, and there are, yeah, it's a mixed bag statewide,
you need to
yeah.
get the drop-off moms to do a carpool.
All right, I'm gonna call for a point of order, please.
Back on the budget.
All right, do we have any additional discussion items? Any specific questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is the number in the budget for transportation predicated on the greater reimbursement or the lesser?
So, all right, so I think we might have 2 questions here. So there's a budgeted cost. And when we budget the cost of transportation, we must budget 100% of the cost.
Okay,
The reimbursement amount that we get actually has to be coded as revenue, and it is in the 3101 revenue source in the general fund. So it would be on, and it is not a separate line item because it is considered part of the state school fund. So on page 26, line 3101, where I'm projecting we're gonna receive 19,912,000 in the state school fund. That includes 80% reimbursement of our transportation costs, because we do anticipate that we are going to be able to retain our 80%. So our board has heard this a number of times, but the state has a unique ranking system for districts, and if you spend more per student than other districts, you might get bumped from a 70% reimbursement to an 80%. We were literally on the bubble. We were the very last district to bump up into 80% in the last update, or excuse me, most of the year. May 3rd, I want to say, sometime this month, we received an update. We are now up to 82%. So I am feeling fairly confident that the extra couple $100,000 in revenue that we have in our hands right now, I'm feeling relatively confident we won't have to pay it back.
Okay, that was my question.
But we don't know the final,
We won't know until May of 2027.
that's when we know for sure.
We have to pay back what they've been giving us for the past 11 months.
So, and on page 12, it's expenditure history by fund.
Yes.
And I was noticing that some of these numbers are kind of up and down. One that kind of caught my eye was line 272, the summer school
Yes,
state grant goes from, 24 was 5,967, and now it's proposed over $400,000, so.
Yep. And that is a confirmed number. The current governor has, and the most recent session has secured funding for state school, or excuse me, summer school funding. And so what was a large amount in the 24-25, that was a post-COVID push for summer school. There was a very, very late announcement for summer school funding for this current year, which was last summer. And schools scrambled to get that put together, but we have received confirmation that we will be receiving $402,000 for summer school for this summer, as well as the following two.
And then the line item, two lines above that goes from, again, 59,495 to 346,000. The summer food services program, does that tie in together with that?
So the summer meal program has expanded incredibly, and I do believe that the implementation of this free meals for students, this community eligibility program, our team is serving so many meals over the summer, and that is exactly what we're hoping to be able to serve to them. We are talking about special revenue funds, and so sometimes we have to budget revenue so that we can budget expenditures. If I don't budget enough revenue, they cannot keep operating unless I come back to the board and we have a whole budget resolution. So sometimes in our special revenue funds, we might budget plenty so that if it comes true, great. But again, going back to that slide, nothing can be spent until that amount is actually realized. But I will say our food service team, they are going to 2 different locations. They bring the meals to 2 different drop spots twice a week in the summer, and everybody gets, depending on whether it's the Tuesday or the Friday or whatever, you get 3 breakfasts and 3 lunches, or you get 4 and 4, and then they come back the next week. And it is an incredible program. It is self-sufficient, meaning our reimbursements from the state and federal government are covering the cost for that summer meal program. So if we can feed more kids, we're gonna do it.
Okay.
But yes, special revenue, anything that starts with a 2 on those pages that you're looking at are special revenue funds. And again, that is the uncertainty, that unpredictability that makes you really nervous, especially if you're talking about people's jobs being in those monies.
Thank you.
Of course.
How many are retiring next year?
3 retirements.
3?
2?
3 off the top of my head.
3 off the top of my head.
No, 4. Scott thought of another one.
I keep looking at page 22, which covers your biennium through 27. And actually, I told you the wrong page.
Yeah,
Page 16,
yeah, okay, current biennium or current year.
we have all of the red things is currently in our budget, and they're not to be determined by the budget committee, are they?
So page 16 actually is what we call the cover page for the state school fund. And what this is this is the state's budget for schools. So this is showing that they have budgeted $11.359 billion for the biennium. And that for 26-27 school year, they're going to give out 5.7 million. But all those reds are all the things the state's gonna take out before they start handing it to school districts for all of those carve outs is what those are called. So this is
This red
the
amount,
state's
the
budget.
state is taking out of our budget.
They're taking out of the entire pot that they've said, hey, school districts, we're gonna give you $11.359 billion. But all those red things we're gonna take out first, and then we're gonna give you your share of what's left.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
All right?
Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Jay, you wanna lead us to the
Yes.
next one? Item 7.
So this point we discussing whether we have it.
Okay. I'd like to put forth to the committee, if we want to go ahead and have a motion to approve the budget as it's been proposed in tonight's meeting. Can I have a motion for that?
You need a budget number, or can I do it? Sure. Okay, I move that the budget committee approve the proposed budget for the 2026-2027 fiscal year, approve the taxes as presented, and make a recommendation to the school board for adoption.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Who said that?
Brent.
All those in favor of approving this motion as it's been described, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. It passes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Guys.
Good job.
Well, thank you guys very much, and my door is open, I at all times, I want our community to feel confident and understand what's a very complex and convoluted system, but our goal is to build that trust and take that input so that this is your district, these are your funds, we want you to feel confident that we are doing what you are asking us to do with them.
Do we need to impose taxes?
So the board, they have approved the taxes presented, and then the school board will actually impose the tax. Yeah,
What are the
we're good.
contracts going to be renewed for our teachers and staff?
Yeah.
So we're
Is that
waiting on
this
a,
year?
we're waiting on a vote. So we reached a tentative agreement. We're waiting on a vote from the teachers union that'll probably take place next week. So I don't anticipate anything, not approving that, but that's the next step.
Are they asking for?
I'm gonna call for a point of order.
Yeah.
This is not on the agenda. And we'll adjourn this meeting at 7:55. Thank you.